Hi, my name is Leah Day, and I'm here with my husband Josh, and we are stitching out lines and grids in one of our cheater Drunkards path blocks. So let's get started.
Okay, Leah instructed me to begin right here after ditching the outer perimeter, and this is actually my second corner. And I didn't follow instructions the first time, and I had some problems, but I'll show you what happened when we get up to it.
This is looking really good.
It's a fun block. It's a nice combination of straight lines and curves.
Now, one little suggestion here. I'm seeing some really tiny stitches. If you could maybe either speed up your hands just a little bit or slow down your machine with your foot pedal.
Okay.
Just a little less pressure on the foot pedal, one or the other, not both. Otherwise your stitches will stay the same.
Okay.
But that's just a little suggestion that I'm seeing right there.
Okay, well let me know when I'm at a good speed.
Okay. Well, I should say, don't try and do it when you're travel stitching.
No, why not?
Because you want to take a slower speed when you're travel stitching, just simply so that you stay right on the line. I always stitch generally slower whenever I'm travel stitching. But this is looking good. Looks like you're trying to move your hands a little faster.
Yes.
Yeah.
I found that's the best way for me to get the speed where I need to be.
Yeah, because your foot kind of wants to do its thing, but your hands, you have more control over your hands.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's always two options available to you. Which one you want to change?
And I'm going to go on with the quarter circle shape here, and then come back around and do the zigzags.
Yeah, that's the exact same way I did it. I just think it kind of makes a nice boundary line so that you can clearly see the space that you have to fill. I just like that idea, but you know, again, there's no wrong or right way to stitch these blocks. And there's always going to be some travel stitching involved. I've been getting a lot of questions about ways to minimize travel stitching, and it's, you know, for the most part, it's not possible to minimize it completely. Some of these designs, you have to be able to travel stitch at least a little bit in order to fill the block completely. So, what is a good hand placement that you're finding for this?
Oh, this one depends. The tight corners are tough, and you'll definitely see my stitching suffer when I get there. Right here, I really like this part of the block because I have a lot more movement. Notice I'm kind of pausing right when I get to the point. That's to give that point a definitive mark.
And if anything, you know, if you're feeling like you need to adjust, that would be a good place to stop and adjust your hands, too.
And again, I'm going to outline the zigzag area before I begin on the straight lines. See, the closer I get to the corner, the more difficult it is to maneuver the block, at least for me.
It will be interesting to see when we kind of pop from this to a real quilt to see the difference, because the blocks definitely do feel different, but the one benefit is you don't have to fight the bulk of the quilt on the machine. You're not trying to squish it in there and get this stitched, and that's the one benefit. But those corners can be tricky. You know, there's that tendency of well, maybe we can add 2 or 3 inches to the edges, but then you end up with a lot of wasted fabric on the edges, and the temptation to stitch through that and fill it up or use that in the block is there too. So really, it's all good skill to gain.
Yeah, you can see I'm way off there, but again, this is near the edge, so it's a little more forgivable than being in the middle of the block where it'll stand out a lot more. Okay, now this is easily the hardest part of this block for me, down here in this corner. It's the angle I'm working in, and I feel I don't have a lot of movement to rotate the block.
Still, that looks really, really good.
Oh, that went a lot better than the first one did. Okay, where should we go now?
I'd probably suggest travel stitching on up and reach this line, and then you can start going back and forth for your grid lines. I think that would probably be where I went. You know, it's probably the path of least resistance, really.
That sounds like a good plan. Now, would this one be a good one to sketch out first with a marker or a pen to just give you an idea of where to go?
I think pretty much all of the blocks can benefit from that. You know, you have the quilting guide, setting down with a paper and pencil, some copies of it, you know, print out some more copies, or take the print that you have, if you've got the printed pattern, and make a few copies of it yourself, and just sit down with pencil and paper and draw over the surface. It's not a waste of your time, and it certainly will benefit you moving through the block in a logical way. Like, you have one more line right here. And you know, that's another thing too, if you can also catch yourself missing lines that you intend to stitch too. So I really think that this block will benefit from sketching it out and playing with it.
How's my speed?
It's looking good. Okay. Through this grid lines area, you're doing great, and that's really a nice balance of speed, hand movement, and the speed of the machine. And if you look at it, your stitches are quite nice and consistent. You know, the shape and size of them. I'll zoom in just a little bit so people can see.
And this is why it was important to stitch this outer circle here first to give me an outline, an area where to stop when I'm doing these
something to travel
squares.
Against. Yeah, something to travel against. It's really nice if that's already stitched, so that as you come back and forth with those grid lines, you have something you can butt up against and stitch along. If that line isn't stitched yet, sometimes it can be, you know, it can just look a little funky when you go back in and stitch it later. But it really honestly doesn't matter, because I know this side was the side that you stitched that kind of later in the game, and it's still fine. It's no big deal. And if you remember, you know, the last video, I did free motion zigzag over the edges of my block because I had raw edges to hide and cover. That's the way the block is pieced. And that free motion zigzag could also hide any mistakes that happen in this area.
And Leah showed me that on her block, and I'm intrigued. I'm going to give it a try too, because you can see there are a lot of errors here, and there's just going to become even more as I finish.
Well, the thing that I've learned more than anything else is figuring out how to hide your mistakes easily is far better than figuring out like ripping them out or obsessing about them, anything like that. It's just so much easier just to cover them up with more fiber, thread, decorative stitching, whatever you name it. It's just so much easier to do it that way than trying to rip it out and be really nitpicky with the block. Okay, so we're right here along the edge of this quarter circle shape, and Josh has used this edge to do a lot of travel stitching. And there's some knots in here. I'm kind of feeling some different things, and you can see the stitching doesn't exactly lay on top of itself. So if you want to hide this, free motion zigzag's a great way to just kind of buzz over the whole thing and hide it. But it does take a little bit of practice, so I'm going to kind of talk Josh through this, and you can see this from a beginner perspective. So we switched to a zigzag, and you want to really be sure that you're not going to hit the edges of your free motion foot when you switch to that zigzag. So make sure to use your hand wheel before you actually put gas on your machine. Use your foot pedal, okay? So let's just kind of play with this and kind of get a feel for it out here on the edge, and maybe just kind of get a feel for it and see what the zigzag's going to do.
Okay. Since I'm new to this, should I drop my speed on the machine?
I would just leave it where it's at, and just, you know, aim to not pedal to the metal with it. You know, you have control over that speed with your foot pedal, so just Start slow and kind of get
Oh.
a feel for what you're doing. And you can go all directions with this. It's still free motion quilting.
I expected this to be a lot more intimidating. It's really not that bad.
It looks intimidating, but it's really not bad. Okay, so now it looks like you're pretty much ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do is the zigzag has a fall on both sides, a left and a right, or I should say right and left. So you want to make sure that the needle, when it's falling over here, that it's falling to the right of the stitching, and then to the left that it's covering it up. So you're going back and forth, kind of straddling that line that we've stitched, okay?
Okay.
So that's what you're aiming for. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Pick up my speed a little bit. There we go.
That was great. You might want to, you can stop at any time to reposition your hands.
The speed I'm pretty comfortable with, but I found the best way to stay on the line is to rotate pretty often.
How does it feel to have the needle moving like that?
It's not that, actually it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it changes the feel of it a little bit, but I think it adds to the experience of free motion quilting. I love to do it.
How often do you do this?
I don't do it very often. It's mostly just when I'm, like this was an applique on my block. So I usually use this along the edge of an applique, but you know, just really I haven't had a lot of a chance to play with it on too many quilts. You know, free motion zigzag's just not that common. It's a lot of fun to play with. But that's looking great, and it's definitely hiding that, you know, that edge, that kind of less than perfect edge. Okay, and at this point, whenever you get off of this, just remember to turn your stitches back to straight stitches unless you want to do this over your whole block. So that's it for stitching lines and grids into this Cheater Drunkards Path block. We learned a lot of different things in this block, and how did you like that free motion zigzag?
I liked it a lot. And I look forward to doing it again. It wasn't intimidating. It actually took me about 5 seconds to get into the swing of it. I actually found it easier using this than just the regular stitching.
Hey, who knows? You know, it's one of those things. This is the first time I've tried teaching free motion zigzag, so I'm really intrigued to see what you think of it if you use it in your block. Definitely share your experience with it on the Free Motion Quilting Project or on the Facebook group page. We have a Building Blocks Facebook group, and you can definitely share your experience there. So my name is Leah Day, and I'm here with my husband Josh, and we've been stitching out a block for the Building Blocks Quilt-Along. You can join in this quilt-along at any time by picking up your copy of the Building Blocks quilt pattern, available at leahday.com. You can also use our Spoonflower cheater cloth. That's what Josh is using in this video. Makes it a little easier because you don't have to deal with seam allowances or any, piecing your blocks or cutting the fabric or anything like that. Just pick up some cheater cloth, cut out the blocks, baste them, and get ready to learn a lot of fun free motion quilting designs. So pick that up at spoonflower.com. Until next time,
Let's go quilt.